Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me the one and only Michael Hyson. Michael, good to have you back.
It's good to
Yes,
be back, my friend.
yes, very much so. And today we are going to be studying the Witch's Book of the Dead. I have my copy. Michael has his copy. This is going to be a study session, and I am looking forward to this very much. So, I'm going to start by reading from the foreword on where it says XX right here, 20 in the forward section. I'm going to be reading I'm going to read in paragraph 1. So it says, the use of a human skull in witchcraft is a very ancient concept, but it is one that some modern witches no longer approve of, even as a symbol. But for our ancestors, the skull represented the ancestral spirit as well as an oracle device intimately linked to the other world. And then go down below, it says, through the presence of a skull, the dead could speak and receive messages from the living. And what would you say about that right there?
It's actually true. Hands down, the skull, be it a human skull or an animal skull, is a symbolic of a gateway, a portal between our realm and the land of the dead. And it's not just that, it could be linked to demons, it could be linked to jinn, it could be the Devi, any number of spirits, even in
Now,
the
no, go ahead.
Voodoo tradition.
Mm-hmm. Now, in order for it to if you want to use a skull for divination purposes, it is good for it to have a lower jaw, so that
Yeah,
way you can receive messages and it can speak to you. So you would agree with that,
I do. You can also use things like jade, green jade, like the necromancer's jade, for an example.
right? Okay, very good. And let's go to page 8. And when you go to page 8, bottom paragraph, I'm going to read the paragraph. It says, modern Wicca has two ironclad dogmatic rules that adherents follow. The first, do what you will and harm none, is a concept likely adapted from the teachings of Aleister Crowley. The second, the Threefold Law, is a precept stating that everything the Wiccan does will return to her 3 times. Neither of these axioms appears in history prior to the 20th century. In real witchcraft, there are no rules. Morality and ethics are situational and dependent upon the culture, upbringing, and personal philosophy of the witch. There are times, such as when danger is imminent, that the witch must take defensive action. It is not evil to protect yourself, your family, and your community. Competent witch learns to work within the balance of nature and the tides of magic. And I would agree with that.
Same
It
here.
is not, yeah.
I would definitely um, agree with that hands down because of the fact that even in my own personal practices, I've learned that there are sometimes you have to go into the more darker aspects, not just the light. If you work with the light, you can work with, say, guidance, guiding people. You can go into psychological type stuff. You can go into healing type stuff. But when you're being attacked, you have jinxes, hexes, and curses that you can implement to try to warn them, hey, if you continue this, I will put you down.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
But
especially like within, certain Wiccans will say, yeah, just, curse
the
yourself and all. But I think that if someone does you wrong, you have a right to
yeah,
do them back. Just make sure that the punishment matches what they did to you. You don't want to go overboard because that'll keep you
correct.
unbalanced. You want to balance your energy and keep that energy
Mhm.
balanced.
Eye for an eye, blood for blood, bone for
Right.
bone.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's go to page 12. And page 12, bottom paragraph, I'm going to start kind of on the second line. It says, spirits are drawn to those built on strong foundations, not crumbling ruins of weakness and poor health. Following paragraph on the next page says, getting enough nourishment, exercise, and sleep helps to transform you into the proper vessel for the dead. I mean, the dead, they crave energy. And if you don't take care of yourself, I mean, if you're just someone who just, I don't know, just drinks nonstop or just doesn't take time to exercise, take care of yourself, it's not good. The connection is not going to be good when you want to work with the dead. Would you
Right.
agree?
I'd say that's more 50-50 because of the fact that if you look at Satanism for an example, build not upon sand but upon rock. Build not for today or yesterday but for all time. This is the strong foundation being spoken of. You want to build for a skyscraper, foundation for a skyscraper, not a house. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize. But when it comes to preparing your vessel for spiritual communion, there's a strong discipline that you must follow. There's a strict diet, especially if you're a necromancer, that you have to follow. And there's things that you do to welcome the spirits from wearing the clothing of the dead that you're summoning. To say fasting, long periods of fasting. Okay. I haven't eaten in 12 hours now. Okay. Just out of an example. Okay. I had breakfast this morning about 2:15 a.m. Okay. So yeah, it's been just about 12 hours.
Yeah.
The next time I eat will be tomorrow. Okay. You're getting the nourishment. You're getting a strict thing like say unleavened bread or some kind of bread with honey, for an example. You can eat some meats like fish, but you want to stay away from red meat, just as an example, because you want to make sure your body has the nourishment that you're supposed to get, but you don't want to. The goal of it is to get closer to death to be able to commune with them without actually dying.
Okay.
So that's why I said it's more of a 50-50 here, because in my experience, my personal experience within necromancy, the fasting is you're ridding your body of the impurities. I mean, even Joseph Doherty would tell you that even in the grimoire systems that he practices,
And yeah,
he
go
does
ahead.
a lot of fastings. He
Yeah,
sustains from certain activities.
fasting from time to time is good in general for your health. Even doctors will recommend it from time to time.
12 to 18 hours is a great time for your body to reset.
Especially if maybe someone's been eating a lot of junk food, you want to clear a lot of that stuff out. So yeah. Now let's go to page 18. And on page 18, this is the entering the visionary state. Oh, this is something I just wanted to comment on. It's entering the visionary state. Whenever a ritual or spell you encounter in this book instructs you to enter the visionary state, following exercise is the one you will use. To summarize, you find a comfortable chair where you can relax, connect to the spiritual forces around you, and you are comfortably seated. Close your eyes and focus on your breathing. Allow your breath to become slow, deep, deliberate. In your mind's eye, see your breath as a living force of energy, inhaling the powers of the spirit world and exhaling your own thoughts and dreams so that the spirits may experience them. Realize the air you exhale becomes sustenance with the dead as they absorb your essence through your breath, which each inhale, the dead align your life force. Your breath should continue this way over the course of the visionary state. Step 3, feel the flesh of your body tingle as the death current begins to flow through you. Notice the changes that take place. Breathing may become shallow, limbs numb. Now, when you do this, and I have done this too, you do notice a difference. I mean, as you focus and visualize, visualization is key in magic. You will feel the energy shift and around you,
especially when you've gotten into that comfortable position, like say the lotus or the half lotus, Indian style. Even you can sit in a chair, you can lay down on a bed, you can sit on the floor, whatever. It's not just sitting in a chair. when you've opened up your chakras, your kundalini, meridians, all that stuff and working in unison, this is a very powerful exercise that one can perform. So I do agree with you on that one.
Mm.
I've had a lot of good experiences with certain exercises from both Christian Day and Christopher Penziak.
Mm.
So, especially
Okay.
in the visualization aspect.
Yeah, me too. Let's go to page 31. Now, page 31, second paragraph down, says witches do not discriminate against other faiths, but rather honor the paths by which we all advance our spirituality. And it says, by connecting with those people and honoring them, you allow their gifts to come and flow through you. One of the most important benefits to working with the dead. If you're having trouble securing a job, call on the grandfather who was a master of industry. If you're unlucky in love, call on someone whose strong marriage you admire. The dead thrill in the joys of life, once lived, and will jump at the chance to be part of your life. Now, one point that I wanted to make is that if you're in a situation in life and you see no way out, the way I see it, there are two ways out of that situation. One, you can work with the dead, like it says here, and work with a spirit who was specializes in that particular field in your life you're struggling with, or you can negotiate with deities and say, look, if I give you this and that, will you do this and that for me? And with those two methods, you can use either one of those or both, and you can get out of any situation. There's nothing impossible. Would you agree?
I do agree. Because and I'm going to say this because I've worked with Asmodeus. One of the things that I've always wanted was a family, but I never had that chance until recently. And I petitioned Asmodeus for a child, of my own. And he actually brought my now ex into my life, and we ended up having a son, and lasted about 6 years, just under 7. And this kid is more like me in just about every way that is downright scary. So, I mean, by petitioning Asmodeus, I also offered my son as a Nephilim to him, as I am a Nephilim to Abaddon, my creator. So, I
For
don't
the
just.
person, I'm sorry to interrupt, but for the average person who's listening who may not be familiar with what that process is, explain to them what offering yourself and someone else as a Nephilim is.
Think of yourself as a tool. It would be like you going to a job site, for an example, and saying, "Hey, this is what I can offer your company." Okay, I'm willing to fulfill a service for you if you fulfill a service for me.
Okay.
I need money to provide for my family. You have that money, but you need somebody to fulfill a service for you. Guess what? I've got that experience. So I'm selling myself to you for that experience. That's the simplistic way of putting it that most would understand.
Yeah, in fact, the average person would absolutely go crazy and say absolutely not with
Yeah.
that concept in mind.
But when it comes to working with spirits, it's a whole nother level because you're elevating yourself. It is, I forget who said it. It was a very well known author of today that said, when you take the vow of a witch or a warlock, you're stepping into a much larger world.
Yeah, it's a
You
completely
step,
different mentality.
therefore, you've evolved. And the path of witchcraft is about evolution, not
Mm,
just about power.
mm,
So when we get into being Nephilims, for an example, there are powers within your junk DNA that you can activate and or they can activate. In this sense, you're evolving into a Nephilim. And if you have a creator, like say Asmodeus, to my son, then he becomes a child of Asmodeus. You go back throughout history, you're going to see the cult of Artemis, the cult of Anubis. This is what they did. This is the offerings that they've given throughout history. And it doesn't just stop there. I mean, you got the Hashishin, you got the modern day Judeo-Christian institutions with their son Jesus. Okay, what did you look at John 1, chapter 1, verse 1 to verse 14 for an example, or 16, whatever, 3:16. John 3:16 says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believeth in him will not perish but live forever. Okay. What do you think happens when a child or a human becomes a child of the gods?
They have a life purpose that is to be fulfilled.
Even in what is it, chapter 6, verses 1 through 4, it talks about the Nephilim. The Book of Giants speaks of them. The Book of Enoch speaks about them. They weren't evil. They were just men of renowned wisdom and knowledge.
Now, this is very similar to what a Christian would do when a child is born and they present it before a priest or a pastor and say, I dedicate his life to God.
Yeah.
Move in his life.
And they sprinkle the holy water on their foreheads. It's the baptism.
It's basically a similar ceremony, just in a different way.
Exactly.
Same concept.
Same concept, just different tools.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to page 41. Now, page 41 says, let's see, at the top it says, Sean Poyer first taught me to conjure the spirits with a wand of the poisonous yew tree, which represents the powers of death and rebirth. And then at the bottom, you should always try to keep the pentacle present during any ritual involving the dead in case any harmful spirits show up, which is good advice. Keep the pentacle present. How important would you stress that?
Well, the pentacle and or the amulet are two of the most renowned items that we in the occult path wear for protection. We have those that we keep on the walls, but we've also got the ones that we wear, the amulets. One is for protection of a location or an object or whatever, whereas the other one is used for the protection of you, the practitioner. But what's ironic here is even the Jewish wore these, and the Hebrews. It's very well documented.
With their symbol of David, I think is what they call it.
Star of David.
Star of David.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's ironic because of the fact that a lot of people, when they get into this sort of thing, they don't stop to wonder, why is it something that is vital for your practices?
Right.
I mean, I have like 13 pages just on tools, and that's just notes from Middle Eastern traditions, ranging from Giza all the way up into modern day Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Israel, all of that area, and then all the way up into European countries, not just African Caribbean. It's all over the place. So you don't want to go into that area of ignorance saying, well, those are evil. Really? Well, did you know that the Christians use it? What do you think their cross is around their neck?
Yeah, not only that, but these symbols allow energy to move in a different way.
Exactly.
Pentagram will trap energy in, allow it to move. A cross would do, alter energy to around you.
The ironic part about the amulets and the talismans is the fact when you're using them in unison, you can actually heal. It's used for healing. It's used for insight, not just for prayer or worship.
Okay.
There's a whole wide range of things that you can do with just an amulet or a talisman. A pentacle in this case, because every single religion has what they call pillars. Islam in the Quran speaks of 5 pillars of elementals.
Oh,
Witchcraft,
I wasn't familiar with that. That's interesting you bring that up. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, even in the mainstream Christianity, there's 5 pillars. I mean, we all know fire is passion, rage, desire. Blue is for enlightening, healing.
Yeah.
Earth is for all things of the earth, material aspects, but it deals with what we are as corporeal entities. And then you have the air of enlightenment as well. So, I mean, there's a lot that keeps us alive, but it also carries the essence of what we do.
Mm.
It also helps us connect to, say, for example, Lucifer, the emperor. You go into the spirit, well, guess what? All of these things work in unison, just like the chakra. I mean, if you go into Hermeetics, you look at the diagrams of the person standing spread eagle, basically.
Yeah. Well said.
Miracle.
Well, let's go to page 49 now.
All right.
So, page 49, you'll see where it says spirit of place, residue versus hauntings. Now, it says not all supernatural phenomena that you might experience are the products of an active spirit. In fact, most of what we call hauntings are actually the residual energy called spirit of place. That is, they are the psychic vibes, both good and bad, left behind by the living, much like the photos, videos, and audio recordings of ourselves that we leave behind after we are gone. Now, I can definitely relate to that because, in my home, my home is very spiritual, and there are different kind of spirits here. Take for instance, if I'm, like if I'm sleeping at night, a lot of times I'll hear footsteps walk around my bed. Um, I know that there is a spirit that is conscious, walking around my home. If sometimes I'll just, hear footsteps walk close to me, and I know a spirit standing in front of me, even though I can't see it, and then it'll just stand there for a minute and then just walk away, walk towards, down the hallway or something. Or or if a spirit starts pounding on the walls, I'll say, "Can you please stop because of this and that?" They will stop. Okay, that's a spirit that is conscious and that is living in my home and walking around. Then there are those that people see hauntings. They may see someone, a shade or some apparition of someone walking, but they don't seem to be aware of their surroundings, or they're just, they might have old clothes on from a different era, and they're just, it's just like I said, photo recordings, like photos and videos of it's not it. Eventually, it will fade away.
But you've also got the vibes of the energies of a location too, which is different because take for an example, the one thing we've been seeing more and more with celebrities is violence against their wives. Okay, it's not just with celebrities; it's worldwide. You're dealing with, say, for example, sexual abuse. You're dealing with child abuse. You're dealing with spousal abuse, violent tendencies. This creates an energy barrier that it builds up to a point where it literally mimics a haunting, when in fact it is not a haunting. It's one of the reasons why when you walk into certain locations, it's that feeling of, I don't really want to be here. There is something not right here. I've gone into a few buildings like this, and it's like there's just something not right with that building or that apartment. And this is why you need to go in and cleanse it every so often. You need to cancel out that bad mojo and just get rid of it. I think of it like this: if you've been in a bad mood for a few days, your entire atmosphere of your home changes. Even if you're at work, the atmosphere changes, and it ends up being connected to your coworkers, your spouse, or
You
your
can
yeah,
you can feel this just walking
yeah,
into a business or something. If there's been a big argument among the coworkers and people are
exactly.
not, you can
It's that
feel it.
energy, it's that
Yeah,
vibe, and
you
it
can feel
literally
it.
can connect to other people, and it goes with them as well, and therefore it spreads like a wildfire,
Mm,
and people don't realize that. So this is definitely something that is truth, and I have to agree with.
mm. Okay, let's go to page 100.
Page 100.
Now, when you get there, there's going to be a paragraph that begins with the Greeks. So it says, the Greeks believed that restless ghosts were effective candidates for necromancy. The victims of murders, suicides, tragic accidents, and battles were unhappy in their deaths and probably are unhappy in the afterlife. Such spirits are hungry for attention and are quick to offer answers. The Greeks also favored battlefields and tombs for necromancy, for they believed that ghosts lingered around places of their burials. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not as much of an expert in necromancy as you are. So, what would be your comment?
There are a lot of things that goes on in cemeteries, different energies that go on, different communions, because you got the dead, the restless, and the wanderers that are there.
Yeah,
But you also got to make sure that you don't come in contact with a ghoul either. The ghouls are very ferocious folklore, and one of the things that you read here is where the ghosts lingered around the places of their burials. This is actually truth. When you go into a cemetery and you meditate in complete darkness, and even if you're going for, say, let's say, for example, you want to become the ruler of that um, cemetery, you have to petition the elder body of that cemetery. From there, you want to have the lesser ones fight, so you have a champion to to stand by your side, to keep you on the straight and narrow, but also to keep you in line with the spirits, because he's the emissary between you or her. Then you are the emissary between the cemetery and those spirits and that of the world. Okay, so there's a
mm,
big process that goes on there, but at the same time, they do wander. I've gone there and I've seen the shades, and things that moved, and it's like, wow, you know, you're doing a ritual, you're praying, you're doing, some kind of a rite. Like, say, for example, I did an evocation a couple months back, and this rite that I was preparing for literally was doing basically cutting the celestials off from that cemetery.
mm.
For that is because I wanted it as my own power source. So what it is you're working with these spirits. These spirits do roam the cemeteries. They do interact with you, especially if you're a necromancer. You have to become sensitive to their current and their energies. Each one is different. Some come off more aggressive, whereas others are more lenient. Others don't even know they're dead. Okay.
Yeah.
So this passage is definitely true.
Now, also, if you want to go ahead and have dream interactions with the dead, one thing you can do is sleep on top or next to their graves.
Mhm. Mausoleums are very good for that as well.
Hmm. And
Wearing their
also,
clothes.
and on a different note, you can also, I think this book somewhere in the book had said something about people who had starved to death. You can take their the liver and bone marrow
Mhm.
of the person and use it as a love potion for someone to long for someone else if someone had starved to death.
Basically, the
So
elixirs,
the what?
the elixirs,
The elixirs.
powders,
Yeah.
even.
Mm, I just thought I would mention that. Now, okay, let's go to page 126.
Okay.
Now, page 126, it says at the end of the chapter, it says, remember to always exit a graveyard backwards. This helps you to keep any unwanted spirits from following you home. Now, I want to ask you, how true is that? Because, like I had mentioned before in previous videos, it's easy to become possessed if you leave your crown chakra open and you are walking around in a graveyard or where a lot of the dead are. Or even if, it's easy for just spirits to attach to you, attach to your energy. I mean, if you don't cleanse your energy often, you just, it's your energy is like something that's sticky. It just brings stuff. Now, how much of a difference would walking backwards out of a graveyard make? Where does that
I don't
concept?
think it would. I don't think it would make any difference which direction you walk, because the spirits will show you secret entrances into the graveyard. One of the best things that I did is I placed pennies on either side of the gate.
Okay.
Okay, this kind of says, hey, I know it's been a while. I'm sorry I haven't been around, type thing, but I still want to work with you if you still want to work with me. But if you're working with spirits and you don't want them coming back, you can always have your legionnaires, your guardians there to say, hey, you're not going with them. But if you have a powerful aura, you can actually send them flying. But you don't have to, it doesn't matter which direction you go. You can go front, back, side, left, right, it doesn't matter. At least in my opinion and
Yeah.
through my experiences,
Okay.
because I've only been a full-time practicing necromancer now for about 6 years.
Yeah. See, I thought I'd
So
ask you about that because that just stuck out with me. I thought, you know what, this needs clarification.
the only time that I think that you'd want to back out of a cemetery is if you were cursing somebody and you buried a griskus bag or a dibbit box in the cemetery.
Mm,
That would be the only thing that I could see where you'd want to go backwards,
okay.
because you don't want you really. But even if you did that, you don't want to look back at the same time. You don't want to look at where you're doing it because it would
So
attract.
would you say just walk backwards with your eyes closed?
You can, or just look straight down so you can
Yeah.
see where you're going.
But what about your peripheral vision?
You could,
I guess it's just a matter of just get creative and figure it out
yeah,
when you're
exactly. That's the way I look at
your situation.
it.
Okay. Well, Michael, it's been a very good discussion.
Mm.
We went through a big portion of the Witch's Book of the Dead. Everybody, go ahead and go out, pick this book up. It's by Christian Day. Very good author. Lots of good information on it. And maybe one day we will go ahead and do a part two discussing the other half of the book. Um, but Michael, thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
Always appreciate you. And everybody watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.